just not going to get Lynn's on mute.
Yeah.
It's for Monday anyway, but this just to show you what we've been working on for the last couple days.
Yeah, thanks for putting all that together. I know it's a heavy lift.
All right, I'm moving Josh in. It looks like I
Oh, you
can
got
move
him?
you, Peggy. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Shelley scheduled to be on tonight?
Yeah, Shelley said she would be on, and Andrew too.
Okay.
Um,
I got Andrew. Hi, Josh.
Hi, Peggy.
Hi, Andrew.
Andrew, I don't think we can hear you.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, yeah, we're
All
good
right.
now. Yeah.
Josh, are you in your car because your house is too noisy? Just kidding.
I'm at his baseball game.
Nice.
Okay.
And there's Shelley.
You got her? I got her.
Okay.
Okay. She in?
Sometimes it takes a couple tries.
Okay. I just did it again. See what happens.
Yep, it looks like she's
Here we
coming
go.
in.
Okay.
I think we have more attendees on than for our road closure special meeting last week.
Hi, Shelley. Welcome. Shelley, can you hear us? I think you're muted. There we go. Oh, she gone?
We can hear you, Shelley.
Here we go.
Oh.
Shelley, can you hear us? I think you're still muted here. Shelley, can you hear us okay? We can't. I think you're muted.
I think she's working on it,
Yeah.
it looks like.
Okay.
Just take a second for her to figure that out, and then we'll get started.
Okay. There we go. There we go.
Okay.
Hi, Shelley. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can. I'm sorry. For some reason, all the settings on this laptop were shut to off, so
That's
I
okay.
had to figure out the number. I apologize.
That's
I
okay.
thought
We're fine.
No
Thank
problem. No problem at all. Okay, great. I will kick things off. Welcome to the June 11th special meeting of the Longmeadow Select Board. This is Select Board Chair Vineet Hemavathi. I'll be confirming that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Dan Zwerko,
Here.
Andrew Lamb,
Here.
Josh Levine,
Here.
Shelley Maynard DeWolf.
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Lynn Simmons,
Here?
Peggy Sheldon.
Here.
This open meeting of the Longmeadow Select Board is convened via Zoom webinar pursuant to the Act extending certain COVID-19 measures, which extends the provisions pertaining to the open meeting law. The webinar information is posted on the agenda and the town's website, identifying how the public may join. There's no chat or Q&A function. All votes will be taken via roll call vote. All the materials for this meeting are available on the agenda posted on longmeadowma.gov. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. This meeting will not feature resident comment. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that attendees are participating by video conference. Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. If anyone in attendance is recording this meeting, please announce yourself now. Okay. All right, we've got one James WAMC raised his hand that he was recording the meeting. Great. All right. All right. Now we can kind of move into the agenda. So as you all saw, the agenda is to set a special town meeting and to open the warrant for that special town meeting. So first, I'm going to turn it over to Lynn, who is going to kind of talk about what we are proposing the select board to discuss and vote on tonight.
Thank you. So as you saw in your agenda, the suggestion is for a special town meeting for July 9th. That is a Wednesday, which is a little out of the norm for us. Our town meetings are generally on Tuesdays. The Wednesday was selected because we have a public hearing scheduled July 8th, that Tuesday, for our municipal aggregation plan. So the next date available would be that 9th, the meeting on the 9th. We stayed away from 4th of July week. But I did today check to see if Tuesday, July 15th was a possibility, and I'm able to confirm that it is. The space is available, the town moderator would be available, and the town clerk would be available. So if there is preference to hold a meeting on a Tuesday, as we standardly have done, that is a possibility.
Great. Yeah, so I guess we'll take that up first, that the part about the setting the date. And my initial thoughts are it being July 9th, kind of coming off of 4th of July weekend. I don't know if folks will be out of town still, if folks are going to be, on vacation the week after. And so it might make more sense to set this on July 15th, just because it does provide a little bit more space from 4th of July. And also because, like Lynn said, people I think are just more used to having these types of meetings or voting on Tuesdays. But happy to hear from anyone else on and their thoughts on this. Yeah, Josh.
So I think that makes sense. My only concern is that if I know that July 9th is already out there a bit, and if people have already started planning for that, that would be the only issue. But I do think that there's enough of a window now, or enough warning either way, that people can work around it, hopefully. But I know that the July 9th has been out a bit, and that's my only concern. But I don't feel strongly either way.
Okay, great. Andrew, do you have something?
Nope, I'm fine either way.
Oh, sorry, I saw you unmute, so I thought you were ready to talk. Dan?
Yeah, real quick. So I agree with what you had to say, Vineeth. It's not really a concern, but Lynn, and I guess for the town, are we going to be how are we going to be communicating with the public on this? Obviously, it's important, very important to have this special town meeting. So just want to make sure that folks are aware, to Josh's point, kind of on blast to notify folks.
Sure. Yeah, it's a challenging time of year to get people's attention. So we would use our standard methods of the website, my manager's newsletter, the mobile app, social media. We could also do a reverse 911 call. We did do that for the last annual town meeting. Didn't really get a lot of feedback that it wasn't, something people wanted. So we could do something like that again, especially as you pointed out, like this time of year. People aren't used to a town meeting this time of year.
And also, I would add that the signage that we put up, for voting day as well, I think that might be appropriate to notify folks.
Yes, great point.
Great, thank you, Dan. Anything else? Lynn, how should we conduct these votes? So should we have a vote to set the town meeting date, and then also kind of open the warrant, talk about the warrant?
I think you can do it together if you want, but you can also do it separate.
Okay.
It's up to you.
Okay. Yeah, Josh.
Yeah, I'll move that we set July 15th, 2025, set a special town meeting for that date.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right. Peggy, if you can do the roll call vote.
I shall. Andrew Lamb,
Yes.
Josh Levine,
Yes.
Dan Zwerko,
Yes.
Shelley Maynard Wolf,
Yes.
and Vineet Hamavati.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right. And then Lynn, if you want to now talk about the warrant that we're opening up.
Yeah, thanks. So, as you guys are all aware, that this is coming up pretty quickly. So we're working to gather information, but also prepare something for you for an actual article to discuss on Monday night. There's a couple different directions we can go with this. One direction is the actual recall petition or recall language in the charter that would allow for a recall petition to happen. So that's one possible avenue. The other could be to amend the charter to remove the planning board as elected officials and instead have them appointed. We had considered including the housing authority in that as well, because that has been one that's kind of been talked about over the years, along with planning board, that there's been turnover. It's been hard to fill some of those positions. And after we reviewed that and had town council take a look, we learned that we actually cannot include the housing authority right now. It would be a different mechanism to do that. And so we cannot remove them as being elected and make them appointed. So we've put that on hold for now, and the samples that you will get for Monday night will include just the planning board. So again, that would be removing the planning board as elected officials and instead having them be appointed by the select board. This would line up with the other 20 plus boards and committees that the select board vets applicants for and handles appointments for, including zoning board of appeals and the conservation commission, which have very similar statutory and regulatory authority as the planning board does. So it's not out of line with what you're already doing for other groups. And I'm happy to talk in more detail about that or answer questions you have. I also realize, though, you have not seen any of these yet. So again, this is moving quickly, and we're trying to get it developed as fast as we can to give you time with it before Monday night.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn. And so I'll just add that with the moving the planning board to an appointed board, this was something that had been discussed prior to any of these incidents involving Mr. Gunn. This was something that was brought to Lynn as an idea from planning board members. And Lynn and I had been talking about this and even about potentially putting this on our fall special town meeting warrant. And for a number of reasons, for the planning board, I think if you look back at planning board elections, very rarely are they contested. 2 years ago, we even had a write-in candidate win a planning board seat because no one had put their name on the ballot for it. And so we have had, there has been some difficulty in filling the planning board, and I think also last year when we had a school committee vacancy and we had to do an appointment for it, I think all the select board would probably agree. When we do those interviews, we had extremely qualified candidates. And I think one of those things that, that I think about with that is that a lot of those folks maybe would not have run in an election, where they would not have pulled papers, collected signatures, put themselves out there for an election. But when it was a chance to be appointed, they put themselves forward. And so an election can be a barrier to folks participating. And it kind of makes sense, I think, in this situation where we don't have contested elections really for planning board, that we move to it being an appointed board. And like Lynn also said, this is something that other communities have also done. They moved their planning boards from elected to appointed. And in also weighing this option versus the recall option, the recall option and this option are similar in in many ways, in the sense that a special town meeting needs to be held, and then a ballot question or a ballot vote needs to occur. And the plan for that right now is for the ballot vote to occur with the middle school vote on September 30th. So we can have two ballot questions on one election and do that together. The main difference with the recall option is that with the recall option, there has to be a citizen petition that initiates the recall, and then there needs to be about 15% of the voting population. So in Long Meadow, that's about 2,000 plus signatures collected for this petition within 20 days. And also, I think, since this conversation began last week, there have been folks that have talked about the wisdom of having a recall provision in our charter. And it seems to me, at least, that this is something that maybe we should think about in a more sober way, and not necessarily in a reaction to this event. Whereas with turning the planning board into an appointed board, that was something that was already being talked about and had some support in favor of before all of this occurred. And so, for those reasons, I think moving forward with the option of making the planning board an appointed board would be the better option. And then, also just in terms of this incident with Mr. Gunn, and the whole situation with Mr. Gunn, if the ballot question passes on September 30th, the planning board members become appointed. And so the select board the next day could hold a meeting and rescind Mr. Gunn or anyone else's appointment. And so that is also a way for us to, potentially remove Mr. Gunn from the planning board, on October 1st at the earliest. So that I just kind of wanted to add. Lynn, did I get anything wrong there? Anything to add to that?
No, you're spot on.
Okay, great. Anything from the rest of the select board? Andrew?
Just some questions, just so we can really fully understand both of these options. So in a recall situation where there's the signatures are obtained and then the town meeting occurs, is that the end? Then the recall could occur, or does something have to happen with the state legislature? There's more waiting. Is there other steps beyond the ballot vote?
No. So after the town meeting is when the petition signature collection would have to occur. And then,
Oh,
and
right.
then,
I'm sorry.
and then after that occurs, then it would still go to a ballot question.
Right. And then I'm sorry, I meant after the ballot is at the end. Can a person be recalled, or is there more steps after that?
So let me just step back for a second. So the first step would be the select board doing the charter change, bringing this to the town meeting. Town meeting would then need to approve this charter change. Then that goes to a ballot vote. That's how we're proposing this, not as a special act. It goes to a ballot vote September 30th. That would just create the process for a recall.
I see.
Then someone actually has to start a recall process, or they don't. Either way, they could or they couldn't. But in order to actually effectuate removing the planning board member, the recall process would have to start after September 30th, assuming it passes at the ballot.
So in that process, then a citizen could start a petition to get 2,000 signatures, and then what would the process look like after those signatures are turned in?
Yeah, so first it starts with an actual petition process. I'm a little fuzzy on the exact numbers that someone would bring in, but someone brings it in to initiate the process, which then triggers the town clerk to actually issue recall petitions. Those are blank forms that are pretty standardized that then need to collect those 15% of the registered voters. They have 20 days to do that. Once they bring those signatures back and they're certified by the town clerk has so many days to turn those over to the select board, who then has to put the person on notice that a satisfactory recall petition has been received, and give them 5 days to resign. Otherwise, you would move forward with setting the election. And at the time that you set the election, if that person resigns, say 6 days after or 15 days after, you still have to go forward with that ballot question, that election. So then you'd hold the election, you'd get nomination forms in, the election would take place, and that person can also be listed as a candidate on the ballot. So it's a lengthy process, and it's pretty complex. We would try to make it as simple as possible if we adopted it, to make sure that people understood what steps were needed. But just so it's clear, it would not happen right after that town meeting vote. That just all that does is create the process.
So it sounds like once a citizen turns in the requisite number of signatures, it's not actually recalling the individual. It's actually creating an election for that position again, which that person could run for again if they so chose. But
Right.
they could also be ousted. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn. Sorry, I confused those two steps. Andrew,
Okay.
I think we've run through about 100 different scenarios over the
Yeah.
last 6 days.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, but thank you, Lynn. Anything else from the board on this?
So
Josh?
So I got a question and then a more general comment. So in 2019, when the recall town meeting question did pass, was that just a majority vote and that's why it died in the legislature? This is right when I moved to town. So what
Yeah,
happened in 2019?
Yeah, so from what I've pieced together, and I'm going to reserve the right to correct myself at the next meeting, because again, this is all happening quickly. There were 2 citizen petitions related to recall. One of them included select board, and there was a motion to take no action on that one on the floor of the meeting. And then the second one did not include the select board, and I'll explain what that distinction is after. That one had some amendments that were made on the floor. None of the amendments passed. But the actual main motion did pass with a 2/3 majority vote, and it was submitted to the legislature, where it was referred out to committees, and it essentially died. It was not kept going through the legislature. My understanding is due to the fact that the school committee members that were really the subject of it had all resigned by that point, and the board and the town at that point decided not to continue to try to bring the legislation forward. But again, I'm still verifying all of that detail. But the distinction between the select board in one and the select and not in the other, I want to just clarify this. The only way you can change the appointment mechanism, and there's some other things, but specifically appointment and or removal mechanisms or length of service for select board members or a town manager is through a charter review commission, which is an entirely different structure than bringing something forward via citizen petition or via a select board article. And so the mechanism to do that they tried to do through citizen petition wouldn't have been allowed. It would have been in violation of Article 89. So that's just an important distinction to make, because if you decide to move forward with the recall language in the article, the version I have for you Monday night does not include the select board. The example I have includes school committee, planning board, housing authority, and the town moderator. Those are the elected positions that can be done through this type of article.
Okay, and then thank you for that, Lynn. And so for my general comment, given what we've learned in the past few weeks, a recall does not seem in the cards to me for a number of reasons, and I think we can make it simpler by doing the changing the planning board to appointed. I think there are some benefits to that. It could open it up to people. I agree with on the school committee. We did see some excellent candidates. My concern is, and I do think because people want it, I think we should absolutely bring it to town meeting and let people vote on it. That's our form of government. That's what we should do. My concern is that we are concentrating too much power in the select board by doing that, and we taking away a check on power on the planning board while leaving the select board with no mechanism for anything to ever happen. And I think that what happened with Mr. Gunn has showed that you need a mechanism if somebody goes rogue, and if somebody is not living up to what they've should do for the town and what they've pledged to do. And so I'm not saying we shouldn't go forward with this, but I think we also should think about a way to start the process to have some sort of mechanism for the select board, because we're not above reproach. One of us something could happen with us that the majority or 2/3 of people in town don't agree with. And so if it is a charter review commission, I think we should do that. I know that at our planning meeting last year, we're talking about our goals. That is one of the things we talked about. But I think that if we're going to do this, I think that we should make a commitment to take those steps to make it so if people aren't happy with how the select board is acting, that we are also held accountable. And it's a high bar to be recalled. But to my knowledge, there's no other way that the select board is able to be, there's no check on their power or on somebody acting without waiting 3 years for their term to end. So I think that it's clear that people want an action to be taken. They want us to, they don't want to see Mr. Gunn finish out his term. So I think that we owe it to the people that elected us to do that and to bring them another mechanism to do that. But I think we should also make it so that we also can be held accountable.
Great. Thank you, Josh. Anything else from the board?
I just had a question, Vineeth.
Yeah, Dan.
So if we go the appointment route, and it ends up on, it's on the ballot, is this just a majority vote? Or is there a certain threshold or anything that needs to be met?
At the ballot box, it's just a majority. At town meeting, it's a 2/3.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Andrew?
So, I know that these issues with Walter Gunn sparked this development because, we're talking about, but since we're kind of talking about making a permanent change to the structure of our town government, when I think of this, I really only want to do a change with where we appoint the planning board members if it makes sense for the town itself and not because of this one-off problem with a person or event. Now, that said, I see that many towns in Massachusetts do appoint their planning board members, and I see no reason why a planning board can't function well as an appointed board. And I actually do agree that we'd probably have no trouble getting lots of qualified applicants because running for office, and especially for a long 5-year term, is kind of onerous to people. I think if the current planning board was in favor of this, which we would find out at town meeting, that would be very interesting. It would mean a lot to me and probably a lot of other people. At this point, I think considering both sides, both of the two options that we've kind of been presented with, I'd probably be in favor of making the planning board appointed rather than the recall option. I agree with Josh. I have no problem with there being a recall option. I think that's very important and should include the select board members because anything could happen in the future. But I think we could consider that later. And I agree, like it's our job right here to give the town the chance to decide. We're not deciding. We're just giving the town the chance to decide. And I think that's what we should do.
Great. Thank you. Dan?
Yeah, and the other thing I would add is I agree with the appointment method or direction. The other thing that I would add is if we just look back at the history just over appointments over the past year, I mean, we take it very seriously. I've spoken about this before, just around appointments, and I'm not suggesting that had Walter Gunn come in front of us that he wouldn't have been appointed. But we all do our due diligence for candidates, and we prevented certain individuals from serving on boards that could have been a risk for a scenario similar to this one. So I think the way that the appointments have been working is a good way to bring qualified people with the proper temperament to these boards to be appointed, and they have the skills necessary to be effective. So that is just another reason why I support this. And I agree with Andrew and Josh as well as having another discussion around including select board members for this as well, because none of us are above anybody else in the town, any citizen. So I completely agree with those points, and thank you for bringing those up, Josh, as well as Andrew.
Great. Thank you. Shelley?
Yeah, thank you. This has actually been really helpful to hear everybody's thoughts on this. I agree. I do like the idea with having an appointment for the planning board. I think it makes sense for all the reasons everyone just articulated. And I think especially since it aligns with our other 20 some odd boards being appointed, and I think it would help us open up to a broader pool of candidates for us to choose from. So I'm in agreement with that. I also am in favor of exploring a recall for the select board as well. I think that that's the right thing to do, and it's probably worth our time.
Great. Thank you. Josh?
I just wanted to speak just one more time about the appointed. So I'm in front of a lot of planning boards, and I'm most familiar with the East Long Meadow Planning Board, who's actually appointed by the town manager, and they're a really hardworking and excellent group that it works very well. And on the flip side, I know of some planning boards where there's some tension with the select board or the mayor, or where it doesn't, they're kind of at loggerheads, and which can be good. It can foster discussion, but it can hold things up. And I think that given so that really cuts both ways, though, because if people can't have a different say on how they want the town finances to look versus planning, so as I started talking, it came out a little bit more neutral on that than I expected. But I think that I've seen it work very well in other places. So it can be a good thing for the town, and there's a reason a lot of towns switch to it.
Great. Yeah. Andrew?
Just one question. So, will there be any spelling out in a bylaw or something the kind of infractions that would warrant a recall? For example, like moral turpitude or committing a felony negligence, or is it simply like totally open to the select board's interpretation? Essentially, 3 out of the 5 people.
Sure, I can address that. So this is a one area that I've worked with town council on the last 2 days, and because I've seen it both ways. And town council's recommendation is that whoever is filing the recall petition just has to state their reason why. So leaving it fairly broad, but needing to articulate what their reasoning is.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and I'll just say that I agree with a lot of the comments that are made. I think there is concern about concentrating too much power in the select board. I think something that makes me, maybe feel a little bit better about that is the fact that we do have other boards, committees like the Zoning Board of Appeals, Community Preservation, that have a lot of authority, and they have been appointed. And so that is something that, has already been taking place in our town government. And then in terms of the charter review and there being some mechanism either for accountability for the select board or any member in town government, I completely agree with that. And in our goal setting meeting last September, we talked about this exact issue and talked about there needing to be a charter review. And what we decided, and this is just more for the public to know, is what we decided was that the last charter review occurred in 2017. And so it would be appropriate for another charter review to occur 10 years after. And so that's why we kind of made an announcement after that goal setting meeting during one of our select board meetings that, while we can't guarantee if any of us will actually be on the select board, in 2027, that is what we are recommending that the select board at that time, take up a charter review. And that amount of time, 10 years that will have, gone by from 2017, hopefully we can have learned enough, seen enough, where folks in town can make, good recommendations or have a more informed discussion about what we would want changed in our town's charter. Great. So, and I think also, yeah, Josh.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to kind of roll on something a little bit different if you wanted to touch on that quickly.
Nope.
Okay. Yeah. So I think, also the select board has only talked about this incident with Mr. Gunn and what's been occurring when we voted on the letter asking him to resign, and we haven't really had a chance to talk about, why we're actually here tonight on June 11th on a Wednesday night having this special meeting. And I just want to take a second to kind of lay out what has occurred from when this incident first occurred with Mr. Gunn trespassing on the Ochoa's property on January 7th, just so that folks understand the steps that we've taken and what has kind of been going on. So after the incident on January 7th, the Ochoas reached out to the planning board chair and made her aware that an incident had occurred. And what needs to be said, and I said this at the last select board meeting, was that in Massachusetts, when an incident or an issue happens with an elected official, the body that the elected official sits on is the body that can take the harshest measure against that elected official. So usually that body is the one that addresses it. And so it also needs to be said that this is, completely uncharted territory for us. We've never had to deal with anything like this. And, and obviously the Ochoas as well have never had to deal with anything like this. And so, after January 7th onwards, the planning board chair and the Ochoas were in contact with each other. And I think both were trying to figure out what options were available, what steps could be taken. On or around March 16th, the Ochoas emailed over a official complaint about the matter. And at that point, the planning board chair reached out to the chief administrative officer of the town of Longmeadow, which is our town manager, Lynn Simmons, and made her aware of this, and also asked for guidance on how to move forward with this. And so at that point, the town manager looped me in as the select board chair. We kind of discussed how we should handle this and what our next steps should be. And what we decided was that we should take an opportunity to meet with both the Ochoas and also Mr. Gunn and get their version of what had happened and to gather more information. And so first, the town manager and I met with the Ochoas on or around April 16th. And that in that meeting, the information that they provided corroborated and really spoke to what we had already assessed as had occurred on January 7th, where Mr. Gunn had trespassed onto their property and had made racist statements towards Mr. Ochoa, all kind of under the guise of acting under governmental authority as a planning board member. And there was something that the Ochoas shared with us at that meeting, and that was that Mr. Gunn had said to Mr. Ochoa that night on January 7th that he had been arrested previously for trespassing. And so that was the first time that the town manager or myself or anyone on the town side became aware that there may have been prior incidents. And so after that, we made a records request to the Longmeadow Police Department for any reports relating to Mr. Gunn. And we received a police report from 2014 that was also a trespassing incident. And that report has been covered in, I think, Mass Live, The Republican, Shoestring, that have all done articles about this and that incident. After that, the town manager and I both met with Mr. Gunn on May 2nd. We talked through the incident with him, asked him for his version of events, and I'm I think I can speak for the town manager here where it kind of was clear during the meeting that Mr. Gunn did not understand the severity of what he had done and the consequences of it. And so in that meeting as well, he explained that when he was at the Ochoa's house on January 7th, he offered a fake name, Walter Jones. We asked him, why he had done that, and he said because he had been caught trespassing so many times before that he had learned to give a fake name to avoid getting in trouble. And so that also, kind of obviously that caused great concern for us. Towards the end of the meeting, as I said, it was clear that Mr. Gunn didn't understand the consequences of his actions or what he had done. At the end of that meeting, I told Mr. Gunn how the town manager and I perceived what he had done. I explained to him how the public would most likely respond to what he had done. And I told him that the way that these incidents usually resolve is that the person resigns. And Mr. Gunn didn't respond to that. After that, the town manager informed the planning board chair about our meetings with the Ochoas and also Mr. Gunn. And then the planning board moved to have a special meeting a week later on May 9th, where they handed out the harshest penalty that they could, which was a public censure. After that, Mr. Gunn still did not resign. And then at our next select board meeting on May 19th, I put forward a letter asking for his resignation. The rest of the select board adopted that letter, and we asked for his resignation. A few days later, an article came out on the Shoestring, and Mr. Gunn had told the Shoestring that he was going to release a statement. And I was waiting for that statement because since we asked him for his resignation, I wanted to give him a chance to respond. And, that response never came. And then his first public statements were last Wednesday on June 4th at the planning board meeting. And at that planning board meeting, he stated that he has no intention of resigning. And also his behavior throughout that meeting was completely out of bounds, was completely unacceptable. The way that he treated other planning board members, the way that he treated town residents, making physical contact with the town resident, and the way he treated our staff was completely unacceptable. So the next day, it became clear that he was not going to resign and that this behavior was a pattern that was potentially escalating. And so, the town manager and I started exploring these options, and that is why we're here tonight. Because I will also say that watching that planning board meeting last week, I don't know how they can function moving forward in that environment. I also don't want to see our staff, our town residents, and our planning board members in that environment. It was to me, it looked like a very unsafe environment. And for me, I felt like we had to take some type of action here. I do want to say too that when the town manager and I met with the Ochoas at the end of that meeting, they told us that they had some hesitancy in coming forward because they were worried that the town government would kind of brush this off to the side or not take it seriously, which obviously is understandable but very sad to hear. And what I will say is that what the Ochoas have told us, recently is that they feel like the town manager and myself, that we have acted decisively here and that we've acted with fairness, and that I think we have acted in a way that they weren't necessarily expecting or their town government to respond in that way. But I think it is absolutely necessary here that we do this. None of us are here because we want to be dealing with an issue like this, right? We're all here for public service because we want to make our schools better and our town safer. and make our town work smarter. And I know that none of us take any pleasure in this, but I think this is a moment that we have to meet, and this is something that we have to address, and we cannot let this go by us. Yeah, Josh.
I'll move that we place option 2 for the changing the planning board to an appointed board on the warrant for July 15th, 2025.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Just
Dan?
quickly. So, on your comment, Vineeth, about just the safe, can I comment just what you were talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. Just in terms of, because I watched the planning board meeting as well, and I got to tell you, I personally don't feel safe, like being in a public meeting with someone with the history like Mr. Gunn has shown, and certainly physically putting his hands on somebody, and the way that he's treating the staff, the reporters, the news reporters, the reminder. I think that this calls for having police presence at future select board meetings as well as planning board meetings or any other meetings, because I don't feel personally, I don't feel safe, and I can't speak for others at the planning board or on this committee or on this board, but I think that's something that the town should look into. If Mr. Gunn is previously threatening people with a gun on their property, trespassing, putting his hands on residents who are speaking out against his terrible actions, then we should be having a police presence or security at these meetings. And that's just my opinion, but I did want to make sure that I spoke out for that.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Anything else?
I didn't mean to cut you off, Beneath. Thank you for that, for explaining. I think that was very well put, and I hope it will. I know it was enlightening to me on the timeline. I hope it was for other people too. I didn't mean to cut you off like that. Move on.
No, I get it. You're at a baseball game. Anyone else? Okay. Peggy, we do a roll call vote.
All right. Andrew Lamb,
Yes.
Josh Levine,
Yes.
Dan Zwerko,
Yes.
Shelley Maynard DeWolf,
Yes.
Vineeth Hamabathy.
Yes. All right, great. Thank you. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Just 1 second, if you
Oh,
could.
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to address, I know that there has been a lot of inquiry into my office and to individual select board members just looking to make public comment on this. And I know we've been telling people this special meeting are traditionally, we do not offer public comment during special meetings. The next select board meeting is June 16th. There is a resident comment section of that meeting. And additionally, this recording of this meeting will be posted to the select board agenda for this meeting, either later tonight or certainly by the end of the day tomorrow.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Lynn. Yep. So our next select board meeting is Monday night, and folks, we usually do the resident comment at the top of the meeting, and folks can join either in person or via Zoom to make comments, and we always welcome folks to join and make comments.
Is it possible to get this meeting put on the LCTV YouTube page as well?
Yes, we'll work on that.
Yeah. Thank you, Josh. Okay. So I think I said I was entertaining a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? Okay. Peggy?
Good night.
Oh, no, sorry. You got to do a
Roll
roll
call?
call vote here.
Sorry. I love it. Andrew Lamb,
Yes.
Josh Levine,
Yes.
Dan Zwerko,
Yes.
Shelley Maynard DeWolf,
Yes.
Hamabathy.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Great. Thank you all so much for joining. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Here.
Bye.